My name is Dr. Eric Vanover, and I'm an Associate Professor of History at Germanna Community College. Today we are standing in the History Pavilion at the Fredericksburg Nationals Ballpark, which is an exhibit about local baseball history. Baseball is often referred to as America's pastime. The sport's past reflects the country's history. Baseball's popularity began during a difficult time in U.S. history, the Civil War. The Civil War was a horrible time for our country, and we lost over 600,000 men. As the war raged on and soldiers settled into camp life, baseball became a means of exercise, camaraderie, and added a bit of fun in an otherwise sad time. Before the Civil War, the issue of slavery created tension between northern and southern states. In the South, it was legal to own and sell enslaved African Americans. These enslaved people were considered property and were made to work on large farms called plantations. Plantation owners did not pay the enslaved people, and this free labor helped make southern farmers rich. Slavery was illegal in most northern states. The North had farms, as well as the South, but the labor on these farms was not done by enslaved people. A lot of the North's money came from factories that produced goods. Abolitionists, people who believed that slavery was morally not right and should be abolished, formed anti-slavery societies. These societies held meetings, wrote to Congress, and published newspapers and books about the wrongs of slavery. Some abolitionists helped enslaved people escape to freedom through the Underground Railroad. Not everyone agreed with abolitionists. Some white Southerners believed it was their right to enslave people. Both Northern and Southern politicians fought for laws that would benefit their state's interest and local economy. Westward expansion and the addition of new states in the 1850s created tension between Northern and Southern politicians. Some citizens, including members of the newly formed Republican Party, did not want slavery to spread. Others wanted slavery to be legal in the West. Some wanted to be the new state or territory's choice if slavery was allowed or not. Some Southerners thought that outlawing slavery in these new territories would reduce the political power of slave states. Slave owners feared that if there were more free states than slave states, slavery might be outlawed by Congress and destroy the Southern economy. What historic event does this baseball cartoon represent? A. The First World Series. B. The start of the Civil War. C. The Battle of Fredericksburg. Or D. The presidential election of 1860. The answer is D. The presidential election of 1860. This political cartoon, published 2 months before the election day in 1860, compares the election to a baseball game. The players are the 4 candidates running for president that year: John Bell, Stephen Douglas, John C. Breckinridge, and Abraham Lincoln. The artist, Lewis Maurer, must have been a Lincoln supporter because the cartoon shows Lincoln winning the baseball game and the election. Lincoln tells his opponents, "Gentlemen, if any of you should ever take a hand in another match at this game, remember that you must have a good bat and a strike, and a fair ball to make a clean score and a home run." Each candidate is holding a bat that represents their platform or future vision for the country. Abraham Lincoln's platform was to block the spread of slavery. The Southern Democrat, John C. Breckinridge, is shown running away from Lincoln. He holds his nose in response to the smell of a nearby skunk. At this time, skunked was a baseball term that meant a victory where the other team scored little or no points. Southerners were so against Lincoln that he wasn't even on the presidential ballot in some slave states. Yet, Lincoln still won the presidency, and South Carolina seceded or separated from the United States a month later. Other Southern states followed in seceding, including Virginia. These states became the Confederate States of America. Abner Doubleday, the well-known but unproven founder of modern baseball, was at Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor on April 12, 1861. At 4:30 a.m., Confederate forces fired shots onto the U.S. military fort. It is said that Doubleday volunteered to fire the first Fort Sumter guns in response to the Confederate cannon fire that began the Civil War. How many major Civil War battles happened in and around the Fredericksburg area? A. 1, B. 3, C. 4, or D. 6? The correct answer is C. There were 4 major battles that happened around the Fredericksburg area between 1862 and 1864. The First Battle of Fredericksburg, the Battle of Chancellorsville, the Wilderness, and the Battle of Spotsylvania. The city of Fredericksburg sits between the United States capital of Washington, D.C. and the Confederate capital of Richmond, Virginia. Wartime strategy was fought to capture the capital cities. This made the central location of Fredericksburg and its surroundings a key spot of the conflict. With the arrival of soldiers, baseball games were played in military camps across the Fredericksburg region. Abner Doubleday was encamped near Fredericksburg from 1862, before the First Battle of Fredericksburg, until the Battle of Chancellorsville in 1863. Some historians believe that Doubleday organized baseball matches in military camps in Spotsylvania and Orange counties. Only a small amount of soldiers' military experience was in combat. Civil War soldiers spent more time in camp than fighting on the battlefield. Camp life was filled with military drills, marching, and chores like digging latrines, building camp structures, or preparing food. Soldiers would have a small amount of free time to write letters home and play games like cards or baseball. Baseball broke the boredom and the repetition that came with camp life. Thousands of soldiers would gather to watch a game, and scores would be reported on the front page of newspapers, just like troop movements and battles. One documented game was held on April 2, 1863, in camp near Stoneman Switch in Stafford County. Officers from the 13th New York and the 140th New York faced off in the game that went into extra innings and ended in a tie, a score of 33-33. Baseball was enjoyed by soldiers of all ranks. It was one of the few activities in an encampment where ability mattered more than your military position. What side you fought on sometimes did not matter in baseball. Both Confederate and Union troops watched one another's games and sometimes even played against each other. What is the setting of this 1863 artwork? A Union military camp. B, a Confederate military camp. C, a Union prison camp. Or D, a Confederate prison camp. The answer is D. This artwork shows a baseball game at a Confederate prison camp in Salisbury, North Carolina. The artist, Otto Boedicher, was from New York and was a Union prisoner of war at a Confederate prison camp. Prisoners of war are soldiers captured by their enemy during a conflict. During his time at Salisbury, Boedicher created this drawing that showcased spectators watching a baseball game while a runner steals second base. This image is idealized and not realistic of what these prison camps were like. However, early prisoners of war played baseball as an escape from harsh conditions of prison life. As the war raged on and more soldiers were captured, prison camps became overcrowded and unsanitary. Prisoners lacked food, space, and the strength to play baseball. No matter the location, baseball provided soldiers a needed escape from military life. The sport built a teamwork among regiments and helped improve troop morale throughout difficult moments. At the time of Confederate General Robert E. Lee's surrender at Appomattox Courthouse, soldiers from both sides played to pass the time. Returning Union and Confederate soldiers helped spread the game of baseball. Local ball clubs were established across the United States. How many baseball clubs were formed in Virginia a year after the Civil War? A, 2, B, 9, C, 11, or D, 25? The answer is C. In 1866, 11 baseball clubs were founded in Virginia. Fredericksburg's first organized ball club and the Kenmore baseball field were established that same year. One of the Fredericksburg Club officers was a Civil War veteran, Sanford Chaffee. Chaffee was a Connecticut native and a Union soldier. One of the greatest outcomes of the war was the emancipation of the enslaved population. The passing of the 13th Amendment after the war permanently abolished slavery in the United States. It wasn't until 1885 that the first account of African Americans to play baseball in the Fredericksburg area was published in the local newspaper. However, we can assume that African Americans played before the 1880s. In Washington, D.C., Frederick Douglass, the famed abolitionist, became an honorary member of one of the city's first black baseball teams, the Mutual Baseball Club. Douglass's youngest son, Charles Douglass, played for both the Mutuals and the Alert baseball clubs in the 1860s and 1870s. Charles's older brother, Frederick Douglass Jr., was one of the founders of the Alert Baseball Club. In 1869, the Cincinnati Red Stockings became the first fully professional baseball team. The Red Stockings, along with 7 other teams, joined the newly formed National League of Professional Baseball in 1876. The president of the baseball's National League was Nicholas E. Young. During the war, he served in the 27th New York Regiment and played a baseball game at the White Oak Church in Stafford. The national pastime gained popularity during the turbulent time in the United States history. Here in the Fredericksburg area, brave soldiers fought, faced the brutalities of war, and found small joys in playing baseball.